Today's reflections, I'll call it a sermon to be brave, it's called Promises, Promises. It's about what we promise as members of the Unitarian Universalist congregation. I chose to talk about this because this is the first time in weeks that I've been here. It's the beginning of another preaching cycle. So here we go. We are bound to the earth by gravity. And when we leave the earth, we must defy the laws of physics that bind us to our planet home. There is no promise of commitment in this arrangement. Instead, we are held in the embrace of a natural law over which we have no control. Jumping on a trampoline, we can launch ourselves into the air for just a moment or two until gravity pulls us back down, time after time. If you have children, you may have seen them playing popcorn on a trampoline. One jumps up, the others fly up, another comes up, the others fly up. And more terrifying yet, if we penetrate deep space and lose the lines that hold us to our space transport, or the International Space Station, we will float away into the unknown, unable to ever return. When we become parents, we become tied to the children who have dropped out of our bodies and into our earthly lives. In our hearts and at their naming services, we pledge ourselves to their care and to loving them always and unconditionally, even though that is not always easy. And sometimes it is hard, very, very hard. Children make no promises to us. In truth, sometimes parents and children pull away from each other. Sometimes one or the other or both cannot thrive within such a circle of closeness. Someone craves more space or distance. Sometimes that craving snaps a family's bonds in two, and I know that some of you have been through this with your kids. The lure of individual freedom is powerful, like that woman who said, "I'm not wearing a name tag." Its promise has a magnetic attraction of its own, much like that of gravity pulling us to the earth. We never explicitly agree to remain on the earth because we are simply and naturally compelled to do so. Nor do we explicitly promise to remain children or to love our parents. Physical maturation and emotional development propel us towards adulthood and into breaking away. Until that happens, a child is dependent on a parent, and love travels a one-way street. This changes when a child becomes mature enough to recognize and express feelings of love and affection for family members and for others outside the family. It is the ability to participate in mutual promises of love, obligation, and commitment that allows us to create covenantal relationships of various sizes and purposes. Covenant is a word that literally suggests together coming or coming together, being together, relating together. By its very nature, the term reveals interdependence among two or more individuals who agree to live in alignment with one another. This interdependence depends on mutual promises rather than the more quotidian, one-way promises of living as an individual without close ties to others or to a community. When we live in covenantal arrangements, we will only defy gravity if we all agree as to how we will do them. One of us cannot simply jump up and break free without the support of the group. If we do, we play the popcorn game on a trampoline without agreeing to it. We have defied not just gravity, but the meaning and reality of our covenant. This is as true in how we behave in a marriage in which the partners exchange vows, as it is when a man or a woman takes an oath of office or allegiance, and when a congregation ordains or installs a minister. Each of these is a solemn occasion in which the participants recognize the worthiness of each other and publicly agree to honor each other. Within this congregation, there have been a number of agreements. Over time, these have changed as these congregations become more shall we say, structurally organized. These agreements have been created and approved by the stakeholders or participants. In congregations I've served in the past, these have involved covenants with directors of religious education, with office staff, with people who are the heads of various committees, with board members. There are many different groups that have covenants within Unitarian congregations. Establishing a covenant is almost always a joint or group process. It is unique to the who, what, where, when, how, and why of its participants. Handing a covenant document to someone else as though it were already agreed upon is like being told how things are going to be without any input from you. Nobody likes that. The Ten Commandments come to mind here. The Hebrews didn't agree to anything. They didn't speak to God. The commandments were given to them by Moses, and there they were, handed down a set of rules of the road. If it's going to be handed out, it ought to then be reviewed, considered, and adopted by those who are asked to accept it. Will you agree to abide by it? After all, the value and power inherent in the covenant depends on the relationships of those who actually agree to live or work within its realm. The terms of a covenant are the arms that shelter us. It's a good way to think of it. They're the arms. This congregation, when you join this congregation, you are agreeing to certain principles. You are agreeing to certain behaviors about being with one another. In a larger sense, every Sunday, including today, in other congregations, not in this one, but in others I've served many, we recited words of affirmation, a covenant, if you will, which in other congregations is sometimes called the bond of union. I served one congregation where the words of the bond of union were recited every single Sunday during the service to remind people that this was a mutual agreement. How our words came to be said in this congregation is something that only some of you know. I believe that I have been here longer than every single person in this room, preaching in this congregation, which I first did in 1998. I don't think any of you were here. Was anybody else here today who was here in 1998? This congregation was meeting in the dining hall over there. And after it was pushed out, you found my glasses.
I think so.
On the road. In the bathroom. Thank you. These are my glasses.
Now you got your real ones.
The better ones. Okay. Within the tent of Unitarian Universalism, we do not teach what I always call a unified theology. And despite the amazed glances that this sometimes attracts, and even the cynicism I have had to accommodate of people saying there's no there, one doesn't need to do that. Not if what holds us together is real acceptance of one another. No one here would ever tell you what to believe, nor insist that you change what you do believe. Instead, we might say that it's our deeds, not creeds, that reveal us to the world. Parker Palmer, a Quaker who wrote a number of books about education and spirituality, wrote something I treasure: let your sermon be your life. You don't need another sermon. Your life should reflect who you are and what you're all about. And as I always say to you, I was not ordained into sainthood. Please do not make that mistake. I was ordained into service because my background for years and years was teaching. I always think of myself as a teaching minister, to bring things to you, to open your thoughts, to give you new ways of looking into yourselves and into the experience of being together. Although we may struggle individually to write out that which is of value to us in a personal statement of belief about living, and that which we hold sacred, ours is called a non-creedal faith. We have learned over time that we need not think alike to love alike. That said, in a non-creedal faith tradition, it can be challenging to describe who and what and how we are to those who've never experienced a faith like this. People are confused by what Unitarian Universalism when they hear it. You know, we did a service a while ago last year about your elevator pitch. You know, what would you say to someone if you were in an elevator going down 10 floors about what Unitarian Universalism is all about for you? You know, it requires a lot of thought. The answer to this lies in identifying our faith as a covenantal rather than a creedal faith. As Reverend Tom Belote has put it, we share a covenant of how we try to be together, not a creed of what we must all believe together. You may have been asked this over the years. UU ministers are often asked about how they are able to minister to a congregation of divergent theologies and philosophies. Well, yes, I'll answer that question gently. I don't expect every item in a service to speak to every single one of you. My hope is that something in each service speaks to everyone, and that may be different for each of you. Sometimes it's the music, sometimes it's the quiet time, sometimes it's actually something I say. Something is something that you say, especially during joys and concerns. There are many possibilities for where you will be touched in the Unitarian Universalist service. I also say that if I can live on the street surrounded by followers of a certain person whose name I never say in church, and can survive it, I can survive being in a congregation where things are done very differently. So I do visit other congregations of other faith traditions to see what's going on. We can do this as ministers because if we can agree to live in a family or on the street in a town full of divergent ideas, surely we can live in a religious community of diversity as well. This past week, one of my many brothers sent me an email that made me go, It was one of those sweeping generalization statements that are traveling around the United States at lightning speed right now. And I thought, can you just keep that thought to yourself? I don't need to know that thought. Elaine Silver, when she was doing a service up in Wincroft, said, other people's opinions are not my business. That's a good thing to keep in mind, isn't it? My brother's opinions are not my business. I want him to keep them to himself. I don't need to know them. We can do it here because we are willing to make space for you, each of you, in a setting in which you agree to make space for me, even when I arrive late and cranky and I've lost my classes and But as I say to my brother, the one who sent me this email, you have seen me at home. Oh, to my partner also. You have seen me when I'm not in the pulpit. My congregants don't see me when I'm not in the pulpit. This is where my best self is. I hope that your best selves come here too. There is nothing worse in a Unitarian Universalist congregation than experiencing people who have brought all their shit, and I say that, all their shit with them into the congregation and spread it across other people. This is where we come to be better, to heal, to help each other. Is it not? If you weren't here for that, you would not be here. I don't think you would be here. When creating worship, we look for a variety of texts, music, and words to touch our vastness, to speak to Emerson's teaching that God is unity and works in variety. Isn't that a nice way to think about the diversity in the work? God is unity and works in variety. No matter what we call it, we all come from a common natural source, and we are linked by that fact, whether we want to be or not. If someone asks if we believe in the Bible, we can quote Reverend Belote, who has since retired, and say, that is a creedal question. We are a covenantal church. We share a covenant of how we try to be together, not about what we are expected to believe together. And if asked, does your church believe in God? We can repeat ourselves. That is a creedal question. We are a covenantal church. We share a covenant of of how we try to be together, not what we are expected to believe together, and on and on and on. When we focus on what we are rather than what we are not, we increase the blessings and possibilities in our way of congregational life, and we probably present a more inviting face to the world around us. We are accentuating the positives. Now, while a covenant in the Hebrew Bible meant a promise from God that ensured goodness for his chosen people, it did not guarantee that God would be consistently faithful to that arrangement, or that his people would be faithful in return. And when you read the Old Testament, you realize there's a lot of distance between the commandments and what was actually going on. Some promises are so extreme, like the sacrifice of one's child, that people fall short. We are only human, after all. This is where the idea of recovenanting enters. One repents of imperfections, recommits to goodness, and hopefully is reconciled to a greater purpose. The next time I'm here, I'll be talking about the days of awe, the 10 holy days in the Jewish calendar, which are all about this process, this experience, the need to address one's shortcomings, to consider them, to think about what to do to heal relationships and to go on afresh. When we renew our marriage vows, we are renewing our covenant with one another too. This kind of service can be deeply emotional and profoundly positive for the participants and for the witnesses as well. When I was a student at the Interfaith Seminary, somebody asked me if I would create a service for people going through divorce. And I did. It was one of the most profound things I've done for people. I know so many people who have gone through 1 marriage, 2 marriages, 3 marriages, and there's a lot of hurt still holding them back. There's a lot of pain in the shadows. And so I made up a worship service around it. In the Unitarian Universalist community, we covenant to live together in ways that affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We open our hearts and minds and doors to everyone who seeks the kind of free and yet caring community that we offer. We will care for you here, and as I always say, here you will be encouraged to care for one another. We care too about justice and about taking care of the earth, which sustains us. It is our other partner on the grand scale in our relationship with life. And when it comes back to belief again, if someone asks, do you believe what I believe? What he or she is really asking is there a place for me here? Can I be one of you? Can I be with you? Is there room in this place for me? And then one might answer, there's a place for each of us here because we agree to make space for each other. And one might add what Reverend Bullock said, you have asked me a creedal question and posed a creedal test. Covenant is larger than creed. Covenant is larger than creed. So we might ask, how large is our large? I asked this once of a congregation in New Zealand that was trying to grow itself. And I said, how big is your big? Do you want 25 new members in 1 year? Or would that freak you out? Too much change, too many people all of a sudden. How about 3 or 4? Here in the last few years, one by one, people have been joining this congregation. And it's really nice that it's been going that way. It allows time for building relationships, for getting to know each other. So how large is the Unitarian Universalist large? Is it large enough to shelter the world we want to live in? I think it'd be really nice if there were more Unitarian Universalists, a lot more Unitarian Universalists. Once upon a time, there were many more Unitarians and more Universalists, and then what the leftovers joined together to make Unitarian Universalism. Wouldn't it be great if there were more of us? In most congregations, every few years, the congregation looks at itself and reflects on its purpose, asks itself if and how we have changed, and invites more of us into the discussion and process of expressing our vision and fulfilling our purpose as a congregation. We did some of that when we met last year, I believe it was last year, at the Barnegat Bay Center, yeah. The discussion and process of expressing our vision and fulfilling our purpose as a congregation. A promise kept is a dream fulfilled. May all our dreams of bringing more peace, love, and justice into the world come true. It's on all of us. We're not waiting for God to do anything. Our hands are the hands that build heaven.